Back to today's video. Today is Monday, August 11th, 2025, and today we are going to be talking about the 2026 midterm elections under the conditions of the 2018 midterm elections. I've actually been seeing a lot of you guys comment about what you would think a hypothetical would look like under different sets of circumstances, whether 2020, 2022, and of course 2018. And I figured it'd be fitting to take a look at what I think the map might look like on the House map, on the Senate side, and potentially even just taking a look at some of the governor races, maybe not to the same degree, but all of these races under the circumstances of the 2018 midterm elections. Now, the generic ballot right now currently has the Democrats up by about 4 points nationwide. In 2018, however, the final average had Democrats leading Republicans by 7.3% for a final result of 8.4%, nearly a 9-point victory for Democrats on the national level. And so what I thought would be the best case to look at the 2024 map in comparison to 2026 is actually just adjusting based on what the national numbers actually told us in terms of respective party vote share in this election. So taking the 2018 margin, 2018, Democrats winning by 8.4%, and then taking what the Republicans had of a margin over the Democratic Party of 2.6% across the country. I mean, this was pretty significant, if you ask me. You go ahead and take that and compare it to the numbers here, 8.4%, add it over, and you'll find that Democrats would swing the electorate from where it was in 2024 by 11 percentage points. So it would be a pretty significant, shift and change from 2024 to 2026 if you were to, again, run it under the 2018 numbers. It'd be noteworthy, to say the least. I mean, that is an 11-point swing. So I want to do it on an incremental basis. We'll go ahead and just shift the margin here in favor of the Democrats by 5 points as a baseline. And it can show you already that Democrats are already going to be in a position where they're winning the House back under this set of circumstances. And I don't think that really should be shocking, really, to anyone who comes across these videos. And that's because Republicans barely won the House the last time. You saw on the map before I shifted it over was 220 to 215. So not at all a large map, not at all, and one that Republicans can rely on for victory. This 5-point shift was more than enough to give Democrats that majority in the House of Representatives. Now, to take it over by an additional point, you'll find Democrats are at 232, then to 235, 236, 237, 238, 242, and then the full 11-point swing would give Democrats a massive 245 seat advantage. Obviously not realistic to the degree that we see redistricting across the country. Ohio is going to redraw their maps. Texas is going to have some newly drawn maps, but it is a very, very notable shift. I mean, this is truly a massive change in support, and obviously one the Democrats would be very happy with, but no, are outside of the realm of possibility. But again, under the 2018 numbers with the 2024 maps and shifting them accordingly, you really do see that a lot of these states do have districts that if Democrats had slightly performed better in or had a better national environment, I mean, 2018 was really one of the best the Democrats can really work with. Even if you go back to previous elections where, let's say, Democrats had very, very solid victories, the maps in 2018 were not as conducive as I would argue for a Democratic victory. But even looking back at 2008, when Democrats won this popular vote, right, by about 10 points, Democrats got 257 seats. So the next time Democrats could even come close to that was in 2018. So it really isn't too far out of whack. An 11-point swing resulting in Democrats actually getting less seats than what they got in 2008 actually makes a bit more sense. And under this map too, after 2010, Democrats were in a worse position based off congressional boundaries and gerrymandering as compared with today. And so what that means is that Democrats are in a better position with a better map. Take away about 5 seats if you redraw Texas and maybe a few more out of Ohio and Missouri and Indiana. But even then, Democrats have a more expansive majority than what they got in 2018. And that's the real interesting kicker about this. That is, the House of Representatives under a 2018, again, style of popular vote margin is very great for the Democratic Party, even if it doesn't seem like that at base value right now. The numbers on the generic ballot already favor the Democratic Party and already favor Democrats winning the House of Representatives back. But let's go ahead and take a look at this House map in conjunction with what a Senate map might look like. So in a similar fashion, what we're looking at on this map is that when it comes down to the Senate elections, the last time this Senate map was up, you have to go back 6 years ago to 2020. Not actually 6 years ago because we're working under the November 26 timeline. But again, roughly around then, Democrats in 2020. Democrats on the 2020 national level won by about 4.5%. That was what the national popular vote margin was for Biden over Trump. And I would argue, too, when it came down to the congressional one, if we actually go take a look at that one, you're going to find that the 2020 election is a little bit more in line with what Democrats would be hoping for. Republicans lost the popular vote on the congressional numbers in 2020 by about 3.1%. So applying that to the 2020 Senate elections, again, going back to those numbers, 2020, Republicans winning by about 3.1%, getting back to the point where Democrats are winning by 8.4%, you're going to find that difference there is about 5.3%. I'm not going to waste your time and just go ahead and shift it one by one. I'm going to shift it all by a significant amount, 5.3%, which is what a shift from the 2020 election would look like if compared to 2018. And here's what we'd find. Based on those numbers, you would see that states like Maine would narrow down, but Republicans would still come out ahead, and North Carolina would go to the Democratic Party. But I will admit that these circumstances are very different. States like Mississippi had been invested in ways that Democrats had not for a long time. South Carolina had a $100 million investment. Montana had a $100 million investment. Iowa had tens of millions of dollars invested in that race. So if we're being very frank about this, the map might look better for Democrats there, but a reality might look closer to this, where Democrats are locking in a lot of the races that might not have been as easy to lock in before and are in a better position in the midterm cycle, but it doesn't mean that they're going to win it all. It does mean, however, that some of these races will narrow up, undoubtedly. States like Florida will be back to that lean characterization under a 2018 style circumstance. Texas would probably be a lean, maybe even a tilt under that margin of 2018, probably lean though, rather than tilt, because 2018 couldn't usher in a Democratic victory in Texas. Alaska would be a likely state, potentially lean with Mary Peltola, but again, that's a lot of hypotheticals. But I would argue that even though we're shifting based off 2020, Maine, if I think it had done its full ranked choice voting tabulation, Maine would have flipped. I do think Democrats would have been the favorite, and North Carolina, undoubtedly Democrats would be the favorite. They actually were the majority popular vote winner of the contested districts in North Carolina in 2018, so that's certainly worth something. Georgia, I think, would get up there as a lean state. Michigan would be a lean state for the Democratic Party, and Iowa and Ohio probably would narrow down a bit. Ohio probably on the closer end. And so that would really bring us to here, where Democrats would be under a 2018 style circumstance. I don't think they're winning Ohio, even though Sherrod Brown did in 2018, but there's a but there. If Sherrod Brown does decide to go for Senate in 2026, which it looks like he might, but I'm not going to work under that estimation until he makes a full announcement, because he could run for governor, this race actually would be more competitive than you think. I still think Republicans would come out ahead, but again, under a 2018 style circumstance, a lot can change and a lot would change. And so this is really what I'd be working with when it comes down to a Senate map. Democrats have an outsized chance in Texas or Ohio, but it really isn't there, and it's probably not the likeliest thing to happen. But there's still that realm of possibility, whereas right now, I don't think Democrats stand to be the favorites or close to being the favorites in Ohio or Texas. It doesn't mean that it's not winnable, and it doesn't mean that we won't reach a point where they are. It just means that it will take really good circumstances for it even to be a close race, and that is what's starting to build up, right? There's a reason why Democrats think Texas might be an opportunity now rather than in 2 years or in 4 years, because they see 2026 as a much better year for the Democratic Party, and if they can replicate the 2018 style numbers, their maps are going to look really, really good. You're finding it here in the House map, 245 for the Democrats, the Senate map, 49 for the Democrats, with an opportunity of 50 or 51 with, a fluke of an election, which has happened and continues to happen in American politics. And when it comes down to the governor level, and it comes down to some of these races, we can actually take a look at the last cycle in 2022. A lot of these races, I'm not going to go one by one and adjust the maps here, but you're going to find a lot of these races are going to be way more competitive and way more favorable to the Democratic Party. States like Kansas might revert back to being within that competitive range. 2018 did usher in a Democratic victory in Kansas, even though nobody was really expecting it. When you look at states like Iowa and Ohio, it brought these states down to single-digit states, despite them being overwhelming for Trump in 16, then again in 20, and would be again in 2024. Again, reverting back to that 2018, maybe these races could be more competitive. I do think Republicans still have that upper hand in states like Florida, but Georgia, I'd take away from the Republican Party given its recent trends. Arizona, I'd keep with the Democrats like they did in 2022. Nevada, I'd probably move it over into much more close to being 50-50 or maybe Democrats being in the slight advantage. There are reasons, and many of them, to believe that a 2018 national environment would be very good for the Democratic Party for very obvious reason. And what that would likely result with is Democrats winning numerous governorships, including maintaining a lot of the ones they have right now. A Senate map that looks like this, if not better, and a House map that looks roughly like this, barring a few seats being pulled away by the Republican mid-decade redistricting. but we will see. This midterm cycle is shaping up to be one of the most interesting ones that we covered. In 2018, everything was so predictable. We knew from day one of Trump that Democrats were going to win back the House and going to do very well in a number of elections, but to the degree that they did, maybe not expecting it as much or as less in the Senate. But 2026 has been a whirlwind. Republicans started out with the advantage. Trump started out being popular, and the numbers have fluctuated over time. And what they are telling us is that they are moving in a direction that looks closer to 2018 than it does to 2024. And that's good news for the Democratic Party. But should they actually reach that point where they're winning nationally by 8.4%, you can expect some maps that look very favorable to the Democratic Party in numbers that they haven't seen even before the 2018 midterm elections. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to comment down suggestions below. Subscribe on the left if you haven't already, and check out the Instagram and Twitter. At the bottom left of the screen, there's also a Discord server for you to go ahead and join. On the screen, there's a video for you to watch, and then a playlist for my 2026 Senate election analysis videos. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all tomorrow.